the culture and also the product has, should I say, made this an envy of quite a lot of the airlines, especially in the region. And we are spoken of in a very high light, if you like. But that is primarily due to the cooperation I as the chairman and the board of directors have received from most of the employees working at SriLankan Airlines. In the recent past, you have probably realized there has been a lot of, I would say, unfair criticism on the airline and also on its officials. And I think you should not be disheartened by all this. Most of it is not correct, and it is a very difficult task for me as a chairman to keep on responding to all these various allegations. Finally, may I say on behalf of the Board of Directors of SriLankan Airlines that we will, as a company, go from strength to strength, but we need your cooperation. And I am pretty sure where Isla is concerned, we will receive this. I wish all of you a very pleasant evening. Thank you.
That was the message from your chairman, and we now straight away invite the Honourable State Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our guest of honour, my apologies, our chief guest today, Minister of Public Enterprises and Development, the Honourable Kabir Hashim, to address you all this evening.
Mr. Rakita Jayawardena, who's representing the board of SriLankan Airlines, the CEO of SriLankan Airlines, Mr. Suren Ratwate, the senior management team of SriLankan Airlines, the elected president of the Executive Committee Union, Mr. Priyantha Senadira, and members of the Executive Committee, ladies and gentlemen, friends, it is indeed a pleasure to be here on the first annual general meeting of the Executive Union of SriLankan Airlines. When I walked into the meeting, the reception, I suddenly realized that I almost looked naked. Everybody was very formally dressed. So I must first apologize. I'm just coming down from my constituency in Kegol, straight here for this meeting, because I felt I should be here to talk to you all on this first general meeting, and I thought it was important to come and say a few words and give you all that extra push I think that we all need. I think it's indeed a great effort that the union has taken and has worked towards strengthening the airline, to work together with the airline for the future of the airline. So I think I'm really glad that I could be here and speak to you all about this. I was at the Sri Lankan Airlines a few days ago. I think just 2 days ago. I visited the main office in the airport premises. I went to the different departments, the different subsidiaries, and I just thought back that when I was made the Minister of Public Enterprise Development, most of the people in my constituency didn't know even how to pronounce my ministry name in Sinhala. They were wondering what was given to me. And then I suddenly realized that Sri Lankan Airlines was also in my portfolio. I didn't know whether it was a positive thing or a negative thing. However, it was a job that was given to me. And in 2015, when I used to speak in Parliament on different issues and when Sri Lankan Airlines was raised, some people suggested that Sri Lankan Airlines was ready to be buried. So it was like resurrecting the dead. It was not an easy task because I think most of you all know the crisis that we had created for SriLankan Airlines. But however, in the last 1.5 years, almost 2 years since I took over as minister in charge of this subject, despite the fact that we have not been able to hit home on the targets that we want to really get to, I think that we have shown some progress. And progress, at whatever pace that you do, is progress itself. Most of you would know that when we started SriLankan Airlines, when it was Air Ceylon was made Airlanka way back, I think in the late 70s under the late President J.R. Jayawardena. And then we connected with the world, going in line with the open economic policy of the then government, a policy that is still being continued to this day without any change. The coincidence is that today, July 22nd, is a very historic day. July 22nd was the day in 1977 when they had the general elections and there was a government change and there was a sweeping victory for the then United National Party, which got 5/6 of the seats in parliament. And in 77, the mandate to push forward with the economic and social reforms of our country. So July 22nd, 40 years ago exactly today, was that beginning of that change, a revolution that began, that still is continuing. We believe that we have to go to the next revolution, the next change in our country, if we are going to get anywhere. But that's a larger picture which I don't want to touch today. So SriLankan Airlines is part of that whole process. After the 77 change, if you look at the changes, if you reflect back, pre-77 and post-77, I remember when I was a little kid, if you had to call from Kegol to Colombo, you had to dial and book a call, and the waiting time was something like 3 to 4 hours. The operator would tell you that they'll call you back. You could travel to Colombo and come back before you got your call connected because there was no direct dialing. And in that period, if you went to your whichever little town you lived in the street you would have found vehicles which were more or less the taxis or the public transport, which were old British cars, the Morris Oxfords, the Wolseleys, the Vauxhalls, and about 30 people would get into one car. And that's how village people used to commute. If you go further in, the only person who owned a motorcycle was the Periyadore, or the superintendent of the estate. Nobody else had a motorcycle. Even a bicycle was rare to get by. That was pre-77. Post-77, there were a lot more things. We didn't have televisions. We didn't have computers. We didn't have a lot of things that people take for granted in this day and age. But post-77, we saw all those changes coming. From the fishermen to the breadmen, everybody had a Honda C90, Tapal 90, the motorcycle, right? Everyone could ride a motorcycle. The vehicles changed. The Hiaces, the Delicas, the vans came. The Toyotas, the Nissans, the Hondas, they came in. Then suddenly the TVs appeared. It was like magic. But that's change. That was one revolution, one jump, one leap that we took in that time. People forget where we were. Now, we have to take the next leap because we have kind of hibernated in one spot for too long. The United National Party believes in change. We believed in the free market economy. We now believe in the social market economy. We need to bring in more equity. And that's what we believe that we need to do. We need to balance incomes. We need to bring down disparities and give everybody an equal chance. But we also need to work with technology and innovation. We need to change. Management is about change. So I think IASA has a lot of things to think about. You, as Mr. Senadira said, You will lead the change. You have to think about change. You have to change yourself, change your thinking, your attitudes, and a lot of things you have to do by yourself. So the theme itself was very inspiring. Change from blame culture to problem-solving culture. Yeah, I think that's a good start. It's about time that we look forward, not look backwards, because when you look backwards, everything looks bad. As Mr. Priyantha Senadira said, if you are the backbone, and if you want the government to build up the muscles around the backbone, yeah, definitely we can do it, because when we took this over, this airline had multiple organ failure. That was the first issue that we had to cope with. You were failing in every department. We had a massive loss. Your liabilities were larger than your assets. You were bankrupt, literally. We had to resuscitate you from there. So we fixed the multiple organ failure. That's what we fixed. Now we need to get moving, build those muscles like you said. We are ready to build those muscles. So we need to work together. So multiple organ failure time is over. We need to put everything together and move forward from here. I was thinking, I was in China just 2 weeks ago. I was representing the United National Party as the General Secretary with a delegation. I met with the Communist Party of China. We are working together. We are linking our two parties because we believe that we have a sense of direction. We have a lot of common things. Though we have differences, we have more common things as parties. When I was in China, they reminded us that in 1977, Sri Lanka was the first country in our region to implement the open market policy. And the then Chinese President Deng Xiaoping came to Sri Lanka in 1979 to look at what we were doing, and he copied it. He went back to China and started the free trade zone concepts in China and liberalized their economy. But look at where China is today and where we are. Somewhere down the road, we've taken a wrong turn. So we need to now get back on the right track. In China, while I was there as the Minister of State-Owned Enterprises, I spoke about their restructuring of state-owned enterprises. In the last year, they have restructured 690 state-owned enterprises going into public-private partnerships, some with local companies, some with foreign companies, with FDIs. Who could believe this? China could do a thing like this. And we are talking about, we don't want to get our hands dirty. If you don't think differently, we're not going to get anywhere. While I was in China, they spoke about one of their state banks, which was just going into a public-private partnership. But it was important how the Communist Party played an important role. They engaged with the employees. They worked with the employees. The critical factor was the government and the employees were all on one side. They worked together. They were not on two sides. That's what we have to remember. We are on one side. We have the same interest. We need to keep this company going. And we have to be partners in building this formula to work. So we need to work together. I need your support. I need for us to get together and build this company. As the chairman said, we need to restructure. We can't just let this fall, but we need to restructure. So looking at how other countries have fared, we need to take lessons from people. I'd like to talk about a few airlines that have gone through these periods. Delta Airline, 2004, was literally bankrupt. They were really out. A new CEO was given the job. Jerry Greenstein was given the job of turning it around. He got a team together, and by 2008, Delta Airlines became one of the most successful airlines. One of the main things was the employee profit sharing schemes. They got the employees involved. They had a profit sharing scheme, and they worked together with the employees. They diversified their investments. They did some vertical integrations. They bought a refinery. They did some crazy things, but it worked. And they also took over some other smaller airlines. They grew and came back into the field. At the moment, Alitalia Airlines is in difficulties. They're looking for support from the Italian government. Airlines across the world have problems. They're looking at restructuring. Uganda Airlines has huge problems. They're trying to put it back. They've put it back to an extent. There are stories of airlines failing, airlines who are willing to make the change. The owners and the employees together, where they have decided to make the changes, have turned around and become successful. That's very important. It's a time that we need to stick together and run our program. In the process, we have to see that nobody gets hurt. Everybody is looked after. There's a fair deal for everyone. Every employee is considered as part of the team. That's my job, to try and make sure that everyone is together on this. It's not going to be easy, I know. I have other things on my mind, elections, a lot of other things, but this is as critical as all that, getting Sri Lankan back. I would like to tell you one thing. Whatever you do, give your 100%. Unless it's donating blood, of course, because then you'll be dead. So, in any other endeavor, make sure you give your 100%. That's important. I want to tell you something about management before I conclude my speech, because if I speak too long, I'm a politician. I love to speak. When I'm at the microphone, I don't want to give it up. That's typically politicians. But I won't keep you waiting too long. I'm sure between your good dinner, the only obstacle is me, I think, right now, and of course the keynote speaker, right? And that's going to, I'm sure, be a very interesting speech. But I want to tell you, it's all about positive thinking. It's about attitudes. You would know, some of you may know this story about these two salesmen who were appointed by a British company to go into a deep part of Africa long years ago, maybe 40, 50 years ago, and this company was producing shoes. They told these two salesmen to go into Africa and look at the potential for the market for selling shoes in deep Africa. So the first salesman who went there, he looked at the market and he sends in his report. There's absolutely no potential because no one wears shoes. Because it was 40, 50 years ago. The second salesman goes in and then he looks at it and he sends his report, massive potential, as no one wears shoes. Look at the thinking, right? The same thing. One guy says, oh, nobody wears shoes, no potential. The other guy sees potential in it. Nobody wears shoes, massive potential. So it's how you look at it, your attitude, positive thinking. So if we think positive, I'm sure we can turn things around at Sri Lankan. I'd like to conclude with one more little story which I love about management. There's this story about this turkey. He's sitting under this big tree and there's a bull next to him. And the turkey keeps looking up at the tree, the high branches, and then he talks to the bull and says, oh, I wish I could fly high enough to get to the top of this tree. So the bull looks at the turkey and says, well, you can do that if you want. So the turkey asks the bull, how can I do that? I can't fly that high, my flying, I don't have the strength. Oh, that's not a problem. You just take my droppings, it's packed with nutrients. Just eat a little of my droppings and then you'll get some strength, you can fly higher. So the turkey takes a chance, nibbles at part of the dung, and he feels stronger. He manages the first day to fly up to one of the branches, part of the tree. Next day, he nibbles at more of the dung. He gets to the middle of the tree. 3-4 times he does this, and on one fine day, he suddenly flies right up to the top of the tree, and he's on the top of the tree. And he's very happy. And while he's on the top of the tree, there's a farmer who sees him and shoots him. And he gets killed. Story is, bullshit can get you to the top, but it won't keep you there for long. So basically, all you guys have to now stop bullshitting. You have to work. We all need to put our heads down and work if we need to turn this around. That's the only way we can go. And I'm willing to work that much with you all, day in, day out, and ensure that we save our national airline and bring it back to its lost pride and prestige. I'm very happy that the executive union has got together, set this up, come together, taken the responsibility, and had that emotional feeling for the airline. That's important. So let's all get together and make this change. Thank you very much for having me here. I wish you all the very best and a pleasant evening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your presence here with us this evening and for your wonderful and thoughtful message shared. We'd like to now invite the Head of Human Resources of Sri Lankan Airlines, Mr. Pradeep Kakulavala, to make his address. Ladies and gentlemen, we're very honored to say that Mr. Kakulavala has done tremendous progress to the organization, bringing pride and a lot of accolades to Sri Lankan Airlines while he's pursuing for his doctorate. I'm pretty sure he has some wonderful words to be shared. A round of applause to Mr. Kakulavala.
Honorable Minister of Public Enterprise Development, Kabir Hashim, Chief Guest tonight, the Director General of Civil Aviation, Mr. Nimal Siri, keynote speaker for the day, Professor Ajanta Dharmasiri, Board Director, Mr. Rakita Jayawardena, the Chief Executive Officer, Captain Suren Ratwatta, colleagues in the management, the President and the Executive Committee members of the Executives Association, representatives of the other unions, and brothers and sisters of Sri Lankan Airlines. Good evening, and thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this momentous occasion. When I asked Priyantha whether I should speak and what I should speak about, he said, yes, you must speak, for the simple reason that it is to you that we came first with the idea of an executives union. So 2.5 years since, what do you have to say? Let me first say, Priyantha, for the last 2.5 years, you have done an excellent job with your team, and congratulations for getting re-elected, of course uncontested, for another term. This amply reflects your vision and the belief the rest of the organization or your members have on you. Keep up the good work. The theme, the ongoing theme, is transition from a blame culture to problem-solving culture. Now, the Honorable Minister, I think, aptly summed up the essence of your message. Let me add that what you are essentially talking about is a paradigm shift. A shift in thinking from blame culture to problem-solving culture. I always say, and I'm known to say this, that our attitude determines our altitude. And what you are essentially saying is, let's change our paradigm, let's change our attitude. What should we change our attitude about? What should we change our sights? How should we change our sights? Where, when, how? As you said, the Executives Association membership, the managers and the executives are the people who drive the organization. You have the senior management, which gives the direction. You have the middle management, which takes the heavy pull. Now, if you look at the 38 history of the airline, we have seen a lot of ups and downs. And you would agree with me that every time we have pulled through because of human endeavor, with the motivation of our people. The devastating airport attack, where we lost almost 50% of our fleet, if I'm not mistaken. We came through that. And I think it's not anything but the willpower of the people. Friends, we are talking about an industry which makes about $5 average on a passenger, holistically, worldwide, net. And in an industry such as that, we need to do all our magic and get this organization also to see the light of day. And I think we can start from now. When you talk about shifting your paradigms, the way you engage in work, the way you expect your rewards, the way you expect your progression, and the way you expect your engagement with the management would have to change much more positively. And I'm sure with the leadership of your executive committee, the entire executive association would be ready to take that paradigm shift. Because please remember that it is always a case of if it is to be, it is up to me concept that should work in us all the time. So may I take this opportunity to once again congratulate the new committee and also to reassure the membership that we as part of the management are ready and willing to work with you together towards making this paradigm shift, towards making Sri Lankan show the world skies once again. Have a pleasant evening.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. We now have the address by the Director General of Civil Aviation. I'd like you to please put your hands together for Mr. Nimal Siri.
Honorable Kabir Hashim, Minister of Public Enterprise Development, Mr. Rakita Javadana, Director, Sri Lankan Airlines, Captain, I hope Captain is not present, senior executives of the Sri Lankan Airlines, and distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me an immense pleasure to have an opportunity to talk few words at the time you are celebrating your first anniversary under Executive Association. So I am talking to you after very inspiring and eloquent speech made by our Honorable Minister, and he gave you the direction in which you should be working towards. So when the president of your association invited me to talk, I asked him which topic I should select to talk to you, because you as an association represent almost all areas relating to aviation, and hardly any topic that I need to come and talk to you at length. But he wanted me to touch upon not your airline, which you know very well, but the airline in general, or the aviation industry in general. In fact, as you all know, this aviation industry is very safety sensitive. Of course, as you all know, to date, in this year, we had only 2 accidents. The entire fleet of the world had carried about 1.7 billion passengers, and only 41 people have died. So this is a tremendous achievement that all the airlines have achieved, not by accident, but by design or with a great effort. So in order to do that, I think airlines have to work very hard. And as Sri Lankan Airlines staff, you also have a great responsibility to uphold safety. In fact, this airline safety records, when we translate it to general understanding, if we believe or if we think a person would live for 100 years, for him to die in an aircraft, he will have to travel 10 times a day so that he will be killed by an accident. In other words, if you think that you would be killed by an accident, you have to travel 40 million flights. So it is very impressive. And in that context, we have a huge responsibility. At the same time, airline industry in general is very prone to security threats because the airline is considered to be the topmost industries which receive the public attention. We have a great difficulty of protecting the industry from terrorists, and they consider this is a good opportunity for them to carry their message all over the world. So you have to live among all these security threats. And being an airline, it is increasingly international. I think that is the challenge you have. Any other business in this country can be conducted to suit the local requirement. But because this airline and all other airlines are international, you have to survive in that international context. And also it is very competitive. I think I don't need to talk to you on that because you know how much the airline industry has become competitive. And also, as you all know, it is capital intensive. So unless you have sufficient capital infusion, survival in this market is difficult. So that is what I think you are assured with our Honorable Minister, that your muscles would be strengthened, and we at the Civil Aviation Authority are also pleased to hear that, because when you fall down, we are also very much disappointed. And the airline industry is rapidly evolving, not like any other business. This industry, unless you keep pace with the development, you will not be able to survive. Now with the aircraft that you operated 10 to 20 years back, if you try to compete with today's aviation, you may not be able to, I think, survive or be very attractive. And also this is highly systematic and regularized. That is the other challenge you have to face with. However much you must be experiencing economic hardship or financial crisis, no country in the world will allow you to operate with safety deficiencies. So somehow or the other you have to cut corners somewhere else, not in relation to safety, security, efficiency and regularity aspects. And also it is highly dependent on the skilled labor. Just because you want to bring down cost, you will not be able to just employ average people and get them to work under reduced pay. So that is again a challenge, and I am very happy to note that all of you have understood